Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Natalie Horine here. And as I mentioned, I'm going live with Michelle Deborah, as she's labeled with Instagram. All of those of you that already follow her know about her. She is raw vegan, high raw vegan, makes beautiful, amazing dishes that I am just so inspired by. But what I'm more inspired by is her story, what got her there. Of course, weight loss and all these amazing other things that happen along the way, but more importantly, her health that has transformed. So I'm so excited to welcome her on. I'm going to go ahead and give a little intro for her before she comes on here, because she is a health coach, private chef, and what's so incredible is I was actually in the area of where she does her creations, and was really hoping that we'd be able to catch each other like face to face. But what's great is we're able to do the live now. Such a small world, right? So she's a private chef, wellness advocate, and raw food enthusiast who transformed her health through plant-based food and is on a mission to help others do the same, as I am as well. So let's join together. Michelle, let's bring you on. Come on in here. Let's see if I can go. She joined in before she joined in on the live right here. Let's see if I can get you on here live. Oh, here we go. Let's do it. There she is. As I was just saying that I was sharing with you how I ended up going from keto to plant-based raw. I actually juiced first. I did a juice feast, which is a whole nother conversation. I'm sure we can get into that, because I know you juice often. I know I see that Nama J2 juicer that you got there, which we'll probably need to go into, like, cleaning it. For some reason I can't keep like water stains off of mine, but we'll get there later. Either way, how I got into it, for those of you that don't know, for me, I was keto before I was pregnant with my daughter. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I totally received downloads and transmissions of her soul telling me that I needed to change what I was doing, and I needed to consume high frequency foods, which meant that I needed to eat foods from Mother Earth, from Gaia, which meant herbs, plants, fruits, vegetables, right? And all the goodies there. And then I just started going down the rabbit hole from there to Anthony Williams, the medical medium, and then moved into John Rose, and then went through the School of Detoxification with Dr. Robert Morris, as I'm sure you've probably been inspired and empowered by him as well, as a lot of us have. And now I consider myself a high raw foodie. Now the thing is I don't make beautiful dishes like what you make. So I totally want to go into that, but let's just start. Michelle, welcome. And
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to dive into all of this, because there's so much that we could talk about here. I started mostly as a plant-based vegan, and it was from a documentary. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Forks Over Knives. And at the same time, probably around that same month, I was in my senior year of college, and I was home on Christmas break. I was sitting in my aunt's living room, and we were just watching a documentary. And I was like, wow, this makes sense for me for longevity. And then also, my other aunt had introduced me to Dr. Morse right around the same time. And I was watching his videos, and I was like, oh, he was like, all you need to eat is fruit and all these things. And I was in a health degree, and I was like, that's the biggest load of BS I've ever heard. And I went onto his YouTube page, and I started watching the first video. And then I watched another one. And then I watched another one, and then I watched another one, and it felt to me like I was hearing truth for the first time. It really did feel like I had been told a lie throughout my entire life on like what the reality is, what food is.
As we all have. We've all been conditioned and programmed to think that we need to be eating flesh, and that's where you get your protein. And I just want to share with you, listening to Robert Morris's stuff, his videos are not short.
And so between his videos and the documentary I watched, I think that was all kind of swarming around at the same time. So I went plant-based, but it was very, vegan junk food can be very, high oils and stuff. But my journey started out very whole foods based because of the Dr. Morse influence and the raw influence in that. But I was just typically like a plant-based, cooked food with a lot of raw. I tried to be high raw. I was living in the cold. It was freezing, I ate a lot of like apples and nut butters and veganese and like cooked oils and things like that. So for a very long time, I got really well. Like I didn't even realize that I had all these health issues at the time of my in my health degree. I had asthma, I had skin histamine issues, I had like just insane inflammatory responses to dairy and gluten, and I had no idea. You know, eggs, those things. I also
When you say skin histamine, if you don't mind
that is,
sharing what
I
like
know it's
what that means for
I
some people,
can't,
what that
yeah,
looks like. Yeah.
this is the only name I've been able to describe it, but what would happen is, you know, if I had an itch, you know, if I would just scratch it, it would welt up like across my whole arm or my whole leg. And it was just like, people were like, have you just been bitten by ants? And I would be like, no, my body just does that sometimes. It was just this inflammatory all the time thing, and we always thought maybe you have a food allergy, but I would say I don't know what I've eaten today, like all I've had is coffee. How could I be responding to some, and I had cream in my coffee, and I just never connected the two, that cream just that pushed my inflammatory response over the edge that day, and that's what did it that day.
Yes, and let alone coffee. I mean, that's another thing. People are
Yeah.
so addicted to the caffeine.
Yeah.
So we'll keep it there too
I
at
was
some
very
point.
there. Ate a lot of plant-based foods, healed all those things. Then I started gaining a lot of weight. You know, sluggish liver from the oils, from the heavier fats, from living in a cold climate where I just wanted to eat like warm, like heavy foods all the time. And I started eating junk food vegan. I started going out to the bars and I drank a lot of beer and I drank a lot of wine and I ate a lot of chocolate and I ate a lot of veganese and I ate a lot of, you know, Beyond Burgers. They're all
Oh
vegan.
gosh.
They're all vegan,
No.
right? And I was just allowing these little
Right?
permission things into my life, and I put on a lot of weight. And then when I moved to Florida, I took Dr. Morse's iridology classes that year. I had already taken the previous years, but I had never really gone fully raw or anything like that. But this is the last one I took. It was his last live class. It was 2019. I took his class, and from then on, I was raw vegan about 95% for 3 years, and lost 30 pounds on the herbs and on the just the plant-based, low-fat, raw living diet, and then was able to teach people how to do it. You know, it really is about cleaning out your liver, like Anthony Williams says. I incorporated a lot of celery juice into that too. A lot of Anthony William was being introduced into my life at that time, and doing low fat, you know, low fat, even low fat cooked vegan is much more healing than a high fat, fully raw diet. Because if you start adding in tons of nuts and
Mm.
seeds and avocados and well, what else, you know, oil, raw oil.
Well, and we already said it. It's like it's bad oils. It's like canola oils, vegetable oils, and all of these other things that they put in the junk food. I love that you're emphasizing like junk food vegan, because when you say vegan, of course, it's like it has a whole nother connotation. It's like, yes, you can do it for reasons, of course, not wanting to consume animal flesh, but then there's reasons of like, and so for those reasons, but there's also the reasons of like what it does to your body and recognizing that. So of course, you know, mainstream is like, okay, well, we'll make these fake burgers for you that you don't know what the heck all this processed
GMO.
stuff is in
I
it.
mean, crazy.
GMO. My gosh. So yeah, so like, and then it's anytime like we're trying, even in the gluten-free world, anytime you're trying to recreate something that like in this case with vegan, it's like I'm trying to recreate like an animal flesh patty, then like, and then but like is the processed stuff better than that? I mean, you know what I mean? Like it just, and like you said, there's all these other like horrible oils that are in there, which I actually realized that, not that I'm not gonna go back to animal meat or anything like that, but the oils, I'm really sensitive to those oils, which is what everything gets fried in. You know, most of the time people are not frying stuff in like better oils, if you were to say better oils, you know. So,
Buying it in
but go on from there.
oils.
I just want
Yeah,
to.
I had a friend that was a chef for one of the highest, like the highest end restaurant in North Carolina that you can get. And he was like, we get all this farm fresh produce straight from the farms. It's the highest quality produce. And he was like, and it kills me because we fry it in vegetable oil. And so even the most high quality restaurants where you're spending between $50 and $100 per meal, per plate, those restaurants are still not choosing a high quality oil. So why would, you know, your Chinese restaurant down the street do that? Why would the Mexican restaurant do that? Why would a fast food restaurant do that? No restaurants are using good oils. Like, you want to do like as low, like I like, you know, steamed options at restaurants. You don't want to definitely not do anything fried. Restaurants.
Right.
Just that alone made me wake up and realize, like, if that restaurant isn't doing it, nobody is.
Yeah, for a high-end one like that. So I'm glad you brought that up because, again, there's a distinct difference between doing junk food vegan versus actually going clean vegan, and then like raw food vegan is like next level, right? So it's interesting that you shared that you noticed, like, so you went plant-based. So I like saying plant-based too, for the reasons like, now, I mean, I care for my fellow like mammals and everything else and not doing any harm to them. But I like saying plant-based because it just takes away this like weird stigma that people have, like, oh, you're one of those people, you know? But you actually noticed that because you went junk food vegan, that you actually started gaining weight when you were going more plant-based. So what was the shift for you from that to going more raw then? What was like the
aha moment was really interesting. It was at Dr. Morse's class. And at the time, I was still drinking a lot of coffee. I was still drinking wine. I was still doing like, you know, a lot of cooked vegan, you know, I hadn't really been like, oh, I'm going to do more raw. But that is the class that I just didn't drink any caffeine during the class. And then I had a crystal healing session, which I know seems totally weird, but I had this like crystal healing, Vogel healing for anybody that's interested in this technique by one of the shamans there. And we didn't even work on anything related to diet or anything like that. We just worked on like some blockages, you know, blocked chakras. I mean, who knows what?
Emotional blocks. We have emotional trauma trapped in our body.
Oh, yeah.
Looking great, by the way.
Those look great. And from that moment on, I was able to completely cut out caffeine and alcohol. And I have a hard kombucha here and there since then, but I have never been able to like completely break free. And even starting in the raw world, I had never been able to cut out coffee for more than 2 weeks prior to that, even with trying and trying and trying. And so really something shifted from that point on, just being able to free myself. Plus I was in a warmer climate. I don't even miss having like a warm drink in the mornings anymore. You know how people sometimes have to substitute, like, let me just have tea, or, you know, I don't have no desire for coffee. I can take a sip of coffee and be like, no thanks, not for me. There's just like not even a draw whatsoever. So that's what really shifted it for me. Was I was, you know, even as I was making all these like high raw changes as a plant-based vegan, I was like, why am I still like, I'm eating all these alkaline foods and I'm ingesting all these acidic liquids? Like, I can't break free of the wine and the coffee every day. And that was really a turning point for me, was that session. That's what really transition.
So it was a sound healing session?
It was
like a sound bath?
It was a crystal healing session that was a Vogel. It was a Vogel technique. It's a type of crystal, and it just is a chakra cleansing, I guess. Yeah.
I am all about the crystals, by the way. Like, the people that like listen in, like, we're all about the crystals. We're all about sound healing, frequency healing, of course, heart brain coherence. Like, that's a whole nother level there. You know, what the mind can create and believe, then that's what your reality can be. So we want to match the heart and the brain together to come into coherence. So, but utilizing crystals to vibrate those emotions out, because we get trapped emotions in our body, which chiropractically we help release that for people, because we're working with the nervous system going right through the chakras, right? So that's one way to release it. But I just love that you're talking about that, because there are so many beautiful modalities out there. So you cleared out those emotional traumas, and look how those were toxic in your body. They were trapping you and limiting you, putting you in a box, right? To you thinking you needed caffeine. You needed, like, we're just going to stick to caffeine right now. It's not like, oh, but that you needed these things to function, to have energy, right? And we all just kind of like, it's normal. Everyone else is drinking energy. I see a bunch of hearts flashing on here, right? Yeah. And people like needing energy. So they're like doing that, let alone the 5-hour energies and all the other ridiculous stuff. We're just talking about like coffees or people that just need their alcohol just to relax because they don't know how to relax otherwise, right? We release the emotions, and then now you were able to like see more clearly. It's like the veil opened up for you, right? For you to be like, wait, I don't want to be putting these acidic things, because they are, and people don't know, like all these things, like it's altering your brain, of course, but like it's acidic in the body. And learning from Dr. Robert Morris, you know, it's like we keep a basic chemistry. It's either alkaline or it's basic, alkaline or it's acids, and acids burn. Do you want to keep putting acids inside of your body? So you had that veil opened up, and you kind of just went full-fledged from there, huh? And I'll share with your human design. I'm not going to go too far into it, but just a little bit. Like you said that you noticed when you moved from like a colder climate to a warmer climate, being in Florida. And that is totally part of your human design. It literally says the best way for you to digest. And that doesn't just mean digest food. It also means digesting information, for you to be able to consume your creative, for you to get energy, not only nourishingly through the food you're putting in your body, but also through the information and people you surround yourself with. It's best for you to be in a warm climate. It's best for you to be in sunshine. Like when you're eating your food or whatever, it's best for you to be eating your food when the sun is out. When the sun goes down, it's a good time to like kind of be done at that time. So it's just like natural. I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that. Of course, she's in Florida and she like feels better. She wants to eat the nourishing, high vibrational foods while the sunlight is out, because
I say that all the time. I say I'm solar powered, you know, and I was living in a very dark, overcast, damp environment in Boone, North Carolina. And I was like, the sun would come out for 3 months, and I would just be beginning to like open up, and then boom, the autumn would hit, and then the rains and the cold and the overcast, and I'd be like, whoa. And I said,
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And that also describes another part of human design is the PHS system, which is primary health system. Another part of like that has to do with like what's the best way for you to digest information and food, what's the best environment for you to be in. And your environment is it's considered dry kitchen. It's not saying you should only be in a kitchen, but it's like, what does a kitchen do? It brings about ingredients and molding together ingredients to have creation, which is what you're creating in the kitchen all the time. And a dry kitchen is best for you, because dry is more sterile. When you think damp, you think there's a lot of bugs and mold, and you know, stuff can grow in a damp environment. But more dry kitchen, meaning that it's more, I don't want to say sterile, but it's like not as much as going to, like, it matters you being very specific with where you're receiving information, not only for the creation of food and everything like that, but also like you would enjoy, it's good for you to be out in public and be around a lot of people, but not like masses and gobs of people. Like it needs to be a little more sterile than like too many people coming together and being all crowded and stuff, if that makes sense. So that's another really cool perspective when you said like damp environment of North Carolina. I'm like, oh, of course, she's like dry kitchen. So it's great for you to go to places, and it's best for like, you will feel the most alive when you're in places where people are coming together, or you can watch and observe other people. Don't have to be right up in it, but watch and observe people to gather information, because you're also a big researcher at heart. Like you love diving deep into things and reading all the reviews, like doing all the studying with Robert Morris, because you have a 1 in your profile. So for people that know human design, you're a manifesting generator with a 5-1 profile. The 5 and the 1 part of the profile is like the very big pieces of your personality. That, I mean, we have all facets of personality, but the 1 part of your personality, which is more of like the subconscious part, where anybody who knows Michelle is going to be like, oh, that is so her. And that's the fact that you dive deep into things. You're a total researcher, and you will read about it, learn about it. But the only caveat is that you can never learn too much. You're like, it'll never be enough. You're like, I just need to know more. I just need to go deeper into this. Or you're the person that When you go see a movie, you kind of want to watch all the reviews to know if you actually want to go sit for that movie
Yeah.
and you want to go watch it, or a concert or whatever it is. And the 5 part of your profile, I'll just talk about this part, is that you are a universalizer. I share this with you. I have a 5 in my profile as well, where when anything that you go through, experiences that you have, things that you've learned, you want to like digest it, make sense of it, and then share it with the world around you. Just like you want to share the world of like raw food eating and plant-based eating and how that can transform people's lives. In fact, you're coaching to help universalize that, make it, you know, make it easier for people because you've been there, done that, you've been there, experienced that, and you want to be able to share that. So it is so important for you to keep satisfying both parts of that personality. Sharing, doing exactly what you're doing, but make sure you spend that time to do your research because it feels good for you to like it juices you up to like dive deep.
I've been reading nutrition books since I was 18, just being like, you know, they transitioned from first they were just like vitamin books, you know, like all about the different vitamins that we need, to then finding like my first raw vegan, I think it was called the Raw Vegan Detox Diet. And I was like, wow, this is really good. And then, you know, all these other interesting books, and then they're just books on juicing vegetables and books on different recipes. And I have a whole bookshelf and it's all like raw veganism, finances, and spirituality. And it's like, and I didn't think I was a reader until I really found things that I would dive into and be very interested in. And then I was like, oh yeah, I actually love to read. It just has to be a topic that I want to hear about. And that for me was nutrition. And it hasn't, I mean, it's been 13 years now and here I am still loving it, still buying every book I can find on it.
I am so with you on that. And how you know it's an alignment for you is like you have an emotional authority, which I share that as well. I call myself emo, because you need to trust, like, don't make any major, like when you moved, and we'll see, when you make any major decisions, don't make the decision on the high and also don't make the decision on the low. You have to like, literally when you say, let me sleep on that, or let me get back to you, you truly mean that, because you need to ride out that emotional wave, because, you know, we're like, if you say yes to it, then you might wake up the next day and be like, what the heck did I just do? You know what I mean? So ride out that emotional wave, wait to a neutral point. And if you're still like, that feels pretty good, then you're going after it. So definitely ride out that emotional wave. And that does mean it usually takes a little bit longer. We all have friends or family members that like really seem to be really good at making decisions right like that. It's not the best thing for us to make decisions like right away. It's good for us to kind of just like ride it out a little bit, you know, for sleep on, get back to people on it. So just giving you that tidbit too, especially with like big moves or changing jobs, which as a manifesting generator, you have abundant energy. So you should have abundant energy. So if you don't, then it's like, okay, what am I doing that's not in alignment with me? What am I still doing that I need to just let go of? What did I just say yes to and I really don't want to be doing right now? And you'll know because you'll get really frustrated. If you find yourself getting frustrated, which is what we call your not self theme, then you're like, okay, inventory. Why am I frustrated right now? Am I not okay with how that situation was handled? Did I just get involved in something that I don't want to be part of? Or did I like say yes to something and I wrote out my course with it and now I need to be done with it? And guess what? You can be done, because we live in a world thinking like you've got to see everything to completion, you know? And as a manifesting generator, you're really good at like shortcuts. You're really good at juggling multiple things at the same time. And then having that 5 in your profile, people like to like they put expectations on you because you're so good at digesting information and sharing it with people that people think they know who you are and they think they know exactly how you run. And you're like, yeah, I am that, but I'm also this too. And I'm also really good at, like you said, spirituality. You're reading about nutrition and everything else. Like everything that feels good, check in with your emotional authority, as we say, like, how's it feeling? Is it feeling good? If I'm getting frustrated, do I need to pivot? You know, whether it's relationships, experiences, work, pleasure, whatever, right? Yeah, so let's get back to it. Okay, I just get too excited to talk about talking about human design, because I wanted to share some of that in there as you were sharing this evolution for you. So currently, what all are you doing?
I am.
Because you're a chef. So let's talk
Yeah.
about like the food that you prepare. Like those that follow you on Instagram, oh my gosh, these amazing, beautiful dishes. How did this transpire? How did you start realizing your passion for the
I'm so glad
creativity
you
you have in the
asked.
kitchen?
I feel like when I first went plant-based, I had to relearn how to cook because everything was like, if you're not using too much bread anymore, if you're just using things like we don't realize that everything we make is just like pieced together things that somebody else has already made for us. When you're doing meat or when you're adding bread or cheese, it's like, no, it's already been made. We're not making it from scratch. Like cheese is not a from scratch item. You're just buying that off the shelf or bread. So I just was like, okay, let me make everything from scratch. It really just started from the bottom up, figuring out all those recipes. And a little piece of that is I worked for a very, very high-end spa called West Glow Resort and Spa. And we served a 4-course lunch every day. And so for 4 years, I watched these amazing 4-course lunches being prepared by a variety of different chefs. I learned so many different decorating techniques and presentation techniques. And I got really into food photography and really into deciding like, okay, if this is delicious, that needs to translate to the person that is looking at the picture as well. So I need to present it in a way that they would also see that it's delicious. Even if it's delicious, if I just slop it on a plate, it's not going to look pretty. So that really got me started into learning about how to make the food present really well and the food look really beautiful. My cat is in the front.
Hi,
And
kidders. She's like, I feel the good energy now. I need to be part of
and
this.
then I started making cheesecakes and like some raw vegan treats for a raw vegan juice bar in my city in North Carolina. And so I just kind of learned the whole side of making things also present well enough to sell. And then I moved and I took a break from that. It was about 3 years that I just didn't make anything for anyone. But when I left my last job, I decided I'm not going to apply for another job. I'm going to make it work on my own because I have all these things, all these ideas that are going to take my full-time energy and awareness and work to get done. And I'm not having the time on the weekends when I'm exhausted and having to, catch up on errands and do laundry and do cooking and do all these other things, for my work week. I'm not having the time. So I'm going to dive in, not look for another job. And I started making, my first ebook was, my first raw vegan ebook was just, I was like, I have 100 recipes or so. It might have been 140. I don't remember. It was over 100 recipes that were my favorite raw vegan recipes. And I was like, I'm just going to put these all into an ebook. The ones I don't have pictures of already, I'll just remake those recipes, take pictures of them, and put them together in an ebook. And that will be my first ebook. And that will be my first sale, and then I just decided to divide those up into sections because it became a very long ebook. It was like over 200 pages. And I was like, I'm going to divide this up into desserts and then juices and smoothies, and then salads and dressings, and then lunches, snacks, and dinners. And I'll give one of the books away for free and just start building an email list, because I was like, okay, let me just try all these different ways to like build an email list and get out online and all of that. So
I'm impressed that you just went ahead and did that. I mean, like did you, of course, I'm like wanting to know, like, did you go on Canva and you created all the designs on Canva and then like put the beautiful pictures? Because you said, like, of course, typical manifesting generator. You're like, so I worked in this kitchen. I learned about all the beauty of the foods and everything and the presentation of it. I became a food photographer, which is exactly what you want for an ebook, but showing you the beauty of the food that you create.
And
so go on.
then, so that book did really well. I was like, okay, now I finally have this like solid intellectual property that I can resale at any time. I can also give it as a gift or, to any retreat guest. It can be a high value item that I can give to people that they gain a lot of value from. And then I wrote a meal plan that goes along with that. So people were asking, how do I be raw? And I was like, well, you need like a structure, like shopping lists and like what to make each day and that kind of thing. So I put all that into an ebook that kind of just went alongside all of that, and I sold that all as kind of a bundle. And then I made my next ebook. As soon as I finished that one, everyone was like, well, how do you stay raw in the wintertime? How do you stay raw in the wintertime? And I was like, I started working on my winter warming foods ebook. And that one was 40 different recipes of all these really awesome warming foods that take more dehydrator time, and they, you know, they're served warm and they're very cozy and they're more heavy, and either that or they're very holiday themed, like caramel pecan or like caramel covered apples, or pumpkin pie or apple pie, stuffing,
Stuff. What do you use it? Like, I'm just like literally for people, because you're given all these things, and I'm like, I've actually got the raw, or I've got the bundle that was back in November. So I got the bundle. So yours and like many other people's are in there. Which I kind of gone through some of them, but I'm always looking at your Instagram page and I'm like, oh my gosh, that looks amazing. How do you find the time to do this? I mean, I know this is what you do, you love it, but I'm just like, okay, so maybe we'll get there. Like, how can we translate this into, like, you know, me with a little one that I'm sure I can clean off some grapes and give her grapes and give her cucumbers and all these other things. But like, I want to have my like raw food pizzas and stuff, but now I've got to plan ahead of time, like to get my, you know, my crust for 8 hours and the dehydrator. So I definitely want to go there, because I don't want I want this to be very, and I'm sure you as a health coach, you want it to be very approachable for people. Like, this can be done. You don't have to make it complex. It's really nice to be able to, right? Because then that way you can switch it up, because then people are like, you're just having salads every day. And it's like, it's all about the dressing. It's all about the texture. It's all about the different things that you're putting in your salads and the colors, right? So make it not hard, which anything in the beginning, it is going to be hard because it's different, right? So let's kind of like, if you can kind of just like segue a little bit and share, you know, knowing that like you came from the world of like being really interested in all these creations, but then also like realistically, like you're gonna get hungry at some point, and if you didn't like plan ahead of time, how did you kind of work that out?
I think it's really important for people. I do eat very simply, so I eat more cooked food now. When I was mostly raw vegan, it would be like, you know, start off with smoothies in the morning. I always made probably a half a gallon of smoothies, between 1 and 32 ounces to 64 ounces. And then for lunch, I would always just do like a mono meal of fruit, whether that was a whole pineapple or 10 oranges or 7 bananas, or and it was always fruit. It wasn't just vegetables, because you're not going to get the calories that you need to sustain yourself throughout the day. So if you're going to eat celery, like do celery and dates, you know, have enough calories in your lunches. And then, or do another smoothie. And so that's super simple. So then you're just worrying about dinner. And then for dinner, a great technique I have is, ever since college, and I still do this, I have a planner. And I write down like maybe 5 or 6 different dinner ideas. And those aren't necessarily like 5 or 6, because one of those meals throughout the week is always going to end up being leftovers. At least, most likely 2 of those meals are always going to be leftovers. So with that being said, if you're like, okay, I really want Friday night pizza night, well then on Thursday, you know, not only do you know exactly what you're going to be shopping for, because you've written down like 7 ideas, it's all in advance. You're not hungry while you're doing it, because you're, you know, because you've, you know, you might have just had a meal and you're just like, it's all like logical brain. Let me just write down the ingredients that are in these recipes that I don't have in my kitchen right now. And then when you do your shopping day, go shopping once a week, and just make it on a Saturday or on a Sunday or on a Monday or whatever day that you can just be like, I have the most time. You know, you shop once a week, you get everything that you need, and then everything is within access. You don't shop hungry. You always eat something before you go to shopping, or else you'll be grabbing chips.
That is important, because then you'll grab a bag, you'll grab a package or something like that. Or you can grab, you know, grapes, but then you want to wash them or whatever. But unless you're in Florida, you get so many amazing fruits. So for people that are in colder climates, you know, like you don't have the tropical fruit available for you all the time. I mean, you can have it, but they're not ripe, you know, and that's a whole nother conversation on ripe fruits and like those that are picked too soon because we're trying to send them all over the place. What other tips would you add with that?
For, I guess, carrying on for dinner, then, you know, if it is like a pizza, you can just be like, oh, okay, while I'm making my dinner for Thursday night, I'm gonna go ahead and like blend up the crust and just stick it in the dehydrator. Takes maybe 5 minutes to blend it, and then dehydrator time, it's really just the planning of dehydrator time that takes the most time. Planning is, because the dehydrator time, you're not really working the whole time. It's just sitting there. So oftentimes, as far as time goes, eating raw vegan actually takes less time to prep because you're not cooking and you don't have to stand over a stove and heat it up the whole time. You've just stuck it in the dehydrator. Or you just chopped your salad and then you can eat it immediately because it's made. So I oftentimes find that prepping raw foods and eating it is much faster, but it's the planning that people kind of fall off the wagon with. So I just incorporate, like, have a planner. I write my meals down right where I write down my appointments and my activities for the day, whatever I need to remember to do. That's a big skill. That's a big...
I love that you say that. And again, that is another part of your design, by the way. Like, you are a person that, like, it is so important to live by your planner. I say live by your planner loosely, but live by your planner. So that way, yes, for meal planning, for what you're doing for the day, like, it's like, it matters more about the timing of whenever you're doing it versus exactly what you're doing. So that's like really cool to hear you say. I've always like done it by my planner, and, and I'm like, yeah, because that is the best for you. But yeah, and that's because I love that you're sharing that, because I have other people that have gone through, through going, actually juicing, doing an extended juice fast for an extended period of time, which I want to get into that here in a little bit too, but do an extended juice fast. And then it's kind of natural, like when you're doing the juice fast, like you're so focused on that, and then all like the cleansing and the clearing that's going on with that, and also the emotional responses that come up from that, of course, like histamine reactions, anything that we're chock full of, like all that's going to start to come out. And it's part of the normal healing process that we call it retracing in chiropractic, but it's also like the healing crisis according to Dr. Morse's like languaging and everything. But it's kind of natural that during that, like in the beginning phases, you're like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to go raw food, or like, I don't know if I'm going to stay vegan or something like that. And it's like, what I've noticed, and you correct me, let me know if you've seen the same with your clients, that they'll say that in the beginning, but it's kind of natural that once you finish the juice, and especially if you've done it for a long time, we know it's a process to like introduce food back in again, that your palate completely changes. Your appreciation for the taste of the food, the quality of the food, and what your body is willing to tolerate totally changes. That you will naturally go into raw food after juicing for an extended period of time, because you would put your body into shock if you didn't do that. I mean, obviously, like, it matters, like the step down, getting back into just eating and digesting fibrous food again. But a lot of people are nervous about, like you were talking about, like with the preparation of starting to prepare the food. They're like, it takes longer whenever you're like, just like you're sharing, it really doesn't take longer to have this food. It's a matter of planning for it. So I really love that you like delineated that. And then I also want to move into how people start to slip back into their like old ways of thinking that, well, wait, where am I going to get my protein at? Like, I need to go back to eating the way it was. And then that's what gives me the sign that's like, you actually have a lot, like there's more cleansing and clearing that has to happen, because you're still under this false illusion of what the Matrix created, and big pharma and big medicine and big ag and all this stuff has led us to believe.
What I always say is, it's like, we're all these like essentially very complicated houses. Our bodies are these houses that have been built. And so when we are babies, if you're going from baby size, you multiply the most cells from ages 0 to 1, or even like in utero, not, from 1 cell to a trillion as a year-old.
Yeah. Sperm and egg come together, creates a human being.
So you're multiplying as you multiply that exponentially between the ages of like 9 months to, 1 year old, is the fastest time your body's ever going to grow. That's when you're putting, and then from 1 year to say 9 years, you're practically an adult size. Those are years where you are bringing in a lot of materials into the house. Materials are your proteins, your building blocks, your builders. So you're bringing a lot of proteins into your house to build everything during that time. So you might need the protein then, but as an adult, do we need the same amount of protein? Would you still continue to bring in, once your house is built, would you still continue to bring in the same amount of materials? No, because
your foundation should
on
already
your
be
property,
solid, right?
or you'd have to get rid of it, and you get rid of it through your kidneys, and that's taxing on the kidneys because you just have to flush it out of your body some way. And breast milk has 1% protein. It's not a very high protein meal, so we really truly need way less protein than we think. And I've seen so many friends that are incredibly built on raw vegan. Look at Shane Sterling, raw, his name is not Raw Expansion, his name is Matt. Anyway, they look great. They're vegan, they're raw, they're low protein.
Yeah.
Or 15% maybe, which is low compared to everyone else who's like 30%.
Right.
And so that's how I answer the protein question. And I just start diving into this, like, okay, does this make sense? And then, we just logically talk through that. And then as far as like, I know that you had something interesting to say about the juice feasting. Like when you finish a juice feast, like how do you go back? You're like, well, it would take a lot of work to be raw, but energetically you just also have this aha moment as you're flooding your body with not just enzymes and living foods, but these biophoton filled foods. You're flooding your body with this. You have this aha moment where you really don't want to start eating all this like energetically heavy foods. It just doesn't feel good. You don't feel great.
Dead. Or dead
you just
stuff, right?
Naturally will begin to eat lighter. As you progressively eat lighter, you progressively eat lighter. It is what it is almost. I've always seen people just go from more and more light foods as they clear out their body, as they clear out their energetics. They begin to eat lighter and just begin to not need such heavy, fried, dead, foods.
Yeah. Well, they get the truth of what their essence of what our true design, our true nature, our species-specific diet can actually really thrive. Yeah, sure, we can survive off of, eating animal-based protein and all this other stuff and a bunch of like grains and tons of cooked food and high all these fats. Like you can survive, but that's not thriving. Like our bodies were actually designed to, at least like our physical human bodies were actually originally designed to actually go out to 120 years. 120 years. Now that's like unheard of, you know what I mean? Like, you see that with people that live in the high Appalachias and, that stay away from like societies and stuff like that because they're not inundated with all the main stuff like we are. But I'm going to go off on a whole nother tangent if I go there. But I'm on a 120-year plan, like, and I want quality of life though the entire time, because now people like they're like even in their 30s, like us people. I mean, how many people do you know that are like breaking down in their 30s? And I'm seeing it. I see it in 20-year-olds, and then let alone all the anxieties and all the emotional taxes, and just a whole nother level of stress on the body, what it's doing to the brain and the body, and like it just goes back and forth. So all that said, like it's just amazing what can happen when you start to clear your body, and how much more lightness you have on yourself, how much more love and appreciation you have. Like you can go into what I say, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing. You cannot consider yourself spiritual. Take religion out of this, but like you can be like not believing in anything higher than the physical frame, right? And when you go like when you juice, for sure. And then or if you go raw food and you start consuming these high frequency foods, these energetics, living, live, high biophotonic energy foods, you will become spiritual. You will see the world in a different way, right? Did you not? Would you say the same?
Yeah, I would
same
definitely
experience?
see that common thread, even with myself and with many friends who just start to think in this way that's like, it's not religion. You know, many of them came from Catholic backgrounds or Protestant backgrounds or, you know, other religious backgrounds. And they would still be like, yeah, I don't even go to church, but I feel more alive. I feel like a better person. I feel more spiritual. I feel connected more to God. All these things, very common, very, very common thread throughout many, many people that I've talked to.
Yeah. Would you mind sharing any of the changes that you noticed, or like if you saw one thing one way, and like what were some of the shifts for you that
For
you
me, the
experienced
first
personally?
one was just the healing, seeing that firsthand from being fully medicated on all these different things to not having to have any medications whatsoever, and sustaining that was really powerful. So that was definitely the first major thing. And then
Would you mind sharing what like some of those medications would be, like for instance, like the skin histamine reactions you were having? Were you put on like anti-inflammatories perhaps, or
I was
steroids? Were you put
put
on
on
like
steroids for
steroids?
asthma, corticosteroids, I believe they're called. Well, prednisone. Was on prednisone. I was on Advair was my latest one, which is a corticosteroid, and it's tested for 6 months, and then they tell you have to take it for your whole life, or else, tried to get off of it when I wasn't plant-based before I got up, and hospitalized just by trying to get off of it because your body really is under that much stress and that much inflammation.
Yeah.
And all these different kinds of medications. I remember one called Singular. I remember,
That's
yeah.
like an allergy one for like, yeah, for allergies too. I mean, how many people suffer from allergies like rhinitis, the common cold, and itchy, watery eyes, like chronic diet, like indigestion, or like heaviness in the chest, like coughing, like very productive coughs, and phlegmy, which I always think like dairy right away, but it's acids that are in
Mm-hmm.
the body trying to clear, and your body's trying to cough it out. Your body's trying to leak it out, all the areas, even in your ears. Like I was a person, I suffered from regular ear infections until I started getting adjusted. So getting adjusted alone helped my nervous system and
Yeah.
everything communicating properly that way. But through the foods that you're eating, that was also contributing to my acidic load and the stress load on
Yeah.
my body.
All kinds of different medications. I mean, I was medicated from 4 to 23, so 18 years of sickness there. I don't even remember, but it was definitely 3 times a day. That's what I can tell you. Um, yeah.
Gosh, and you're not alone in that. There'd be so many other people. And it was normal, right? Like it was like, just because it's common doesn't mean it's
Doctors
truly
told me,
normal, right?
you might grow out of your asthma or you might have it for life, but we don't know what causes it and there's nothing you can do. And then I just cut out dairy and all of a sudden could breathe. And I was like, really? That's what you told me? Like, yeah.
For life, right? For
I was
life,
like,
if
it's
I
so
keep eating.
simple, and nobody told me, and I've been seeing doctors for 18 years, different doctors, different hospitals, different practices, and none of you had any clue? Like, I don't have a lot of faith in you right now, because if you couldn't even tell me I had a dairy allergy.
Right? They're like, oh, if you're not lactose intolerant, like that's just a whole nother thing. None of us we're the only mammal that drinks milk from another animal. Like it's just kind of weird
Yeah,
if you think
it's
about it that way.
insane. So dairy and even eggs are a huge inflammatory thing in people's bodies, and they have no idea. But the best medium, and this is how I explain it to people, but eggs are the perfect medium to put in a petri dish to multiply viruses and bacteria as quickly as possible. That's what they use in labs across the world. Egg mediums, the egg whites, even the yolks, you know, you mix that up and you can multiply whatever viruses or pathogens or bacteria or fungus you want very quickly. So when you consume eggs, even if it's cooked, you're creating the medium in your body. You're creating a petri dish in your body to multiply those things the fastest. But if you don't eat eggs, and if you eat lots of fruits and vegetables, they know putting fruits and vegetables isn't a great medium to grow those things, or they would use that in their petri dishes, but they don't, because eggs, you know, mold will grow on a strawberry, but after like 2 weeks, they kind of want it to grow right away, you know, if they're trying to create mold to study. Penicillin, all these different, you know, amazing fungi, they'll use an egg medium. So that's what I tell people with eggs too. Extremely inflammatory, and your body, if it's already riddled with viral loads, eggs are going to multiply that quickly.
And they're high in sulfur, right? Like from what we learned with Dr. Robert Morse's stuff, which if you know any more to build on that, because that's a common thing, and some people I know, like they've gone the distance with like juicing and then they, you know, then they've gone into raw and have had fun with making stuff, and then now they're introducing eggs back in. They're introducing animal meat in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this? Like, you just set up like so much of a beautiful haven for your body. And so what would you have to say with eggs? Because eggs are one of those things, like especially in the workout world, or especially with, like, you know, or if you're raising a family, like for kids, you're like, they need to have their eggs. They got to get their fat and their protein, right? Because eggs are like, you know, the amount, it's like the easiest thing to do. And then in some worlds, like the keto world, it's like, get the raw eggs, you know. That's a whole nother animal. It just sounds disgusting to me now. But I used to be a big egghead because I was keto before, so I get it, but I want to hear it from somebody else that's been, you know, been doing this longer. And just speaking about eggs alone.
Eggs have never made sense to me as far as reintroducing them as a good protein source, and I always look at the balance between what are the calories per gram of what something is made up of. We always call eggs a protein, but eggs are actually have more calories of fat in them than they do of protein. Eggs are a fat. Like, you know, why do we call avocado oil a fat, but we call steak a protein? Steak actually has a very high percentage of fat. In fact, it might have more calories from fat than you are getting from protein, because protein is a pretty low calorie. It's 4 calories per gram. Then fat is 9 calories, more than double calories per gram. So oftentimes these like things that we consider proteins are actually should be considered in the fat category, but they've been rebranded, and they're not like great sources. Eggs aren't a great source of protein. They actually have lower protein than they do fat. So if you're trying to get a lot of fat in, sure, eat a lot of eggs, but if you want to grow a lot of viral loads and a lot of bacterial inflammation,
and get like sulfur rings around your pupillary region, right? Which that was a big thing, like, because I was like, I had hazel eyes, which, you know, we're gonna get a little bit into lymphatic iridology right here. Like, we know like true is like a true blue or a true brown, right? And I have hazel eyes, which I'm like, oh yeah, my beautiful hazel eyes. And then I got this really cool like kind of oranginess around my pupil, and I'm like, no wonder the soul of my baby told me, you need to freaking like go on a juice fast and cleanse and clear your body, because I needed to clear out the sulfur, which eggs, and then but like cruciferous vegetables are high in sulfur too. So
as much about the sulfur, it sounds like you know a lot more than me.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of like on a kick with it, because, well, looking at my eyes, I'm like, oh, I want to clear out the sulfur and stuff. So we'll just leave it at that.
But it can be released from your body. I do know that. I've seen and heard of so many stories where people have the craziest orange substances that just come out of their body in some sort of mucus form. You know, a past friend of mine was on day 80 of a black grape juice fast, and his bowel movement was orange, or basically like yellow, orange. Their
What was
bowel movement on day
orange, you said?
80 versus like day 79 and day 81, it was like, well, they've just been eating black grapes. What was that? You know? Um, old stuff.
Old stuff.
You know, I do know that
Wow.
as you clean out your body, your cells will open up and dump old cellular waste in, and it will move out of those pathways. Your colon, it will dump into your colon, it will dump into your kidneys, it'll dump into your nostrils, it'll come out your ears, it'll come out in whatever the fastest way. If there's any mucus channels, your lymphatic system knows how to get rid of it. And, you know, you start opening those up, and your body will get rid of what you need at the right times. So I just say, you know,
I'm smiling. I'm like probably thinking you're like, yeah, I know. You're thinking of clients. You might be thinking about yourself, and you're like, oh my god, like the body is amazing at how much it can
if you
just
just
hold
give
on
it the
to,
right, if you
right?
just give it the right tools, you know, just like if you're clearing out a house that's full of somebody's old junk, you know, if you just pull up an empty pickup in front of it and say, load her up, you know, the body will load it up. And then if you carry that away and come back the next day with another empty one, the body will load it up again. And then you carry that away. So you want to keep your colon, you know, full, even just things like fiber and things like that, eating whole fruits, you know, fiber-filled foods like fruits and vegetables are cleansing to the colon, so that will help move one day's waste out to bring on room for the next day and all of those sort of things.
And that's the conversation around poop, where like
Yeah,
every meal you have, you should be
exactly.
pooping. And how many people are not, you know, they're not going, and they're like, oh, I go regularly once a day. And you're like, well, how
Mm-hmm.
many times do you eat in a
Yeah,
day? Times a day did you eat the day before and a month ago and everything else, right? So like we're
yeah,
backed up. We're full of
yeah,
it.
yeah. Definitely keeping a high fiber diet unless you're juicing. Fiber, low fat diets are extremely helpful in helping people become not constipated and just have proper bowel movements. And even the most simple tips I've given to people that I haven't necessarily coached, but they've just been like, hey, my mom, she has a bowel movement like every 3 days. What do you recommend? And I'll say, like, cut out animal products and do a smoothie in the mornings and drink, like, do lemon water and then have maybe celery juice in a smoothie. And they'll, like, simple, simple, simple things. And they'll be like, I'm pooping every day.
Wow.
I call, I call it my, you know,
Yeah.
or my one friend went from having one poop a day to having two. And so she calls it her luxury poop, is your second poop a day.
You're like, well, keep that
Yeah,
luxury pooping
just these
going.
simple things, but people aren't educated by our medical system to teach them that these things are so simple to get that movement in there.
Cascara Sagrada is a great, you can go to a Whole Foods store and you can get some Cascara Sagrada. You can take that too, because you, especially if you're doing like a juice
Mm-hmm.
feast or anytime, like you need to be pooping. So you can take that to help and take it as much to get you pooping, but got to make sure we're putting good quality
Mm-hmm.
stuff in the tank, you know, and not just
Mm-hmm.
continuing to feed the horrible
Right.
stuff in at the same time. Um, so, gosh, we could talk a whole time talking about just like pooping and, you
Definitely
know,
good.
bowel movements and everything. So the shift, so we'll just take a shift off of that right there. So, where are you at right now? So like you continue to create all these beautiful, mostly raw foods, but like
Mm-hmm.
definitely
Whole
vegan,
foods,
plant-based
gluten-free.
food.
So even if I've traveled or even if I eat a little bit more cooked food, like now I still eat sweet potatoes, lentils, some rice, white potatoes, um, pastas made from those things. So like lentil or rice pasta, sweet potato pasta, you know, noodles. I'll eat some of those things. And but I keep it clean, you know, just kept it, and even if I've traveled to other countries, it's like, okay, I might be eating a lot more cooked food, but I'm going to keep it whole foods, plant-based, and just those techniques have kept my health in check from versus if I were to try and go back to eating junk food vegan, you know, my health would definitely um, just go backwards. I teeter
You would
on
know.
the brink of like I do have to care for how I eat, or else if I just was like, oh, I'll just eat. I can. I'm not the person that can just eat whatever they want. I never have been.
Right.
So I make sure that I just keep it simple, whole foods, plant-based. Even if I'm traveling, I just, you know, I might loosen up my parameters to be more or less cooked. But as long as those parameters are there, predominantly gluten-free, unless it's like ancient grains, like I went to Egypt and I ate their bread, felt awesome. Guess what? Ancient
Wow.
grains aren't the wheat that we have in America that's messing everybody up. So they don't do the same things in
Yeah.
your body. You can eat them and feel fine because it's not creating this like crazy, it's not like completely, it's not like, not that wheat is genetically modified, but it's hybridized so much that it's not even a substance that our body recognizes. So anyway, that's another topic. But
Mhm. Yeah. No, I'm like, yep, I hear you. Because I mean, yeah, when you go there. But the thing is, too, you gave your body
mhm.
enough of a rest to also know when do you hit your, like, when do you hit the titer limit? Like, when
Yeah,
are you hitting the
yeah,
upper limit there? Right. And then you know how to reset because you're like, oh, wait. Because like, you're like, okay, I can go out, I can live life. Because we're not saying, like, do this forever. You're a horrible person if you're not. No, 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 no. But like truly give your body a rest and enough time to know what it feels like to truly feel and
mhm.
function amazingly. So you can go out and have fun and live life. And guess what? Then you know how to reset, right? Like I always like using like juicing, like I do like a 1 to couple day juice reset if I feel like I need to dump out all the water and dump out, you know, and then it even cleanses deeper because I've done the
Mhm.
distance in the beginning, right? So I think it's probably the same for you because when I travel, like, yeah, I'm looking for like I'm looking for all the vegan hot spots around there. If I can get more
Mhm.
raw, awesome, but it's not usually as heavily. But I love other people preparing food for me as long as it's in my parameters of being dairy free and gluten free and
Yeah.
you know and no meat, right? Or in this case, you know, so set your parameters and fully like
Mhm.
trust yourself and what you know feels good for you. Don't beat yourself up if you like, you know, go over your titer, but then know how to go
Yeah,
back to it and don't just continue
exactly.
down that slippery slope.
Exactly. So I still make all of my recipe books will always be fully raw, and they might have a little bit more fat in them or a little less fat. And my next one's really exciting. It's going to be all about event hosting and how to host in style, weddings, catering.
Oh,
Just different themes that I feel like haven't been covered in the raw vegan world, like different books that there's like party favor books and stuff like that, but really like what about like a whole menu? What about an 11 course meal? What about, you know, when you're hosting for and you want it to be stylish and beautiful and amazing, what about, you know, what's your shopping list going to look like? What
your daughter's first birthday party, like I did for mine. I'm like, okay, what can I do so that way I don't have to do like the horrible processed sugar, glutinous,
yeah,
you know, cake face, you know, because you know you
yeah,
have your 1 year old put the cake all over their face. I did like a nut
yeah.
ball, like a nut base, and I put like
Beautiful.
strawberries and blueberries on it, and it was beautiful and it tasted amazing. So I like love that you do that because it's like that does matter. Like I wanted to like show like this can be done and I can share it with other people and I don't have to like bend and buy stupid stuff that I wouldn't typically want to
Yeah,
eat. You know
just
what I mean?
ways to show off to people that are not vegan, to people who are not plant-based, how this lifestyle can be normal, how this lifestyle can be tasty and
Mhm.
delicious and healthy and beautiful.
And beautiful,
Yeah,
right?
so that's my next book that I'll be making, and then I make a
You have a brunch
brunch.
one though. I think I was listening to one of your old ones and I'm like, I used to be a huge brunch fan, but since like shifting things, I'm like smoothies and stuff. But if I knew about a crepe or whatever egg thing that you had. I haven't looked at the recipe book, but I'm like,
An
oh my gosh,
omelet.
like an omelet? Like,
Yeah,
what
so these amazing things that people miss. It's like my whole life theme really, since for probably 10 years now, has been like, have your cake and eat it too. Like, you don't have to choose, like, oh, I'm going to be healthy, so I'm going to eat bland food for the rest of my life. Like, what? My food is the most flavorful it's ever been, and like just learning spice combos and different flavor profiles and all these amazing like salt, sugar, fat, acid or the four flavor. Well, there's different styles of thinking. Some people add in bitter and things like that. But there's four like areas on your tongue that if you make sure all of those variations are in the food, your mouth will light up and you'll be like, that tastes good. So just like hitting all those aspects, whether that's a raw food or if you're a chef, like, these are techniques that like literally chefs use all over the world. It's what you learn in schools. And so like if you just apply that to plant-based healthy foods, you're going to get the same results and people are going to love your food. It's very simple, but people don't know that. So yeah, just incorporating recipes with all the different flavor profiles in them and showing people that these foods can be super tasty, like brunch. You can have brunch. You can have winter foods. You can have soups. You can have stews. You can have like everything vegan. Everything can be made raw vegan. Everything can be made vegan. You don't have to limit yourself. It might take a creative mind. I have a friend, Daniel. I think his name is Daniel McKinnon on Instagram. He's making crazy like turkeys and corn dogs and hot dogs.
Oh my gosh, I have not
and
seen that.
dumplings.
I've seen like turkey and like Thanksgiving instead of Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
I have that recipe book, which I wasn't able to make the stuffing taste very good. I don't know if it's just because I don't like cauliflower or what it is.
In my
but,
book, I made like a raw vegan bread. So you can make like a cracker bread kind of thing. And then I just cut that up into little squares. And then I added like a nice broth mixed into that with the stuffing flavors. So common flavors are like sage and Italian and all these different mushrooms. Yeah.
Something like that.
And so I just did that on like a raw vegan bread. So I just cut it into like crouton squares. Ooh. You can dehydrate them till crispy and then add the broth or whatever, but I mixed it up and you get the same like, ooh, this tastes like stuffing because of the like chewiness of the bread and also just the flavors of stuffing. Like you got to make sure that your flavors are right or else you're that's not stuffing.
Oh my gosh, and I love it because you've got the palette for it too. So if you were to paint a day of what it looks like with you creating all these beautiful like meals, what does that look like? What's the day look like? Usually people are asking you like, what does the day look like of what I'm eating in a day? I want to know more of like the strategy of your day is what I want to know. When I was making those ebooks, I mean, I typically would not eat that way. It's like I'm not eating like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, these like heavy gourmet meals. Like my day is fairly simple. It's always smoothies in the morning, and then it's typically like leftovers for lunch, and then dinner's usually something like cooked plant-based, whether that's potatoes, and it's always usually like I usually typically now always serve it over a bed of greens, so I'm still getting enzymes into every single meal, and it's like not only that, it's increasing the volume, it's increasing the fiber, it's increasing like just the getting photonic like food, like the greens, like just having greens, you're getting all the magnesiums, the calciums, all the minerals that we get worried about like not having enough of. And I do believe in supplementation where it's appropriate because like our mineral and soils are depleted, so they're just not as dense. So like I really like the barley wheatgrass juice powder, like daily greens. I really like adding that into the smoothies so you can make sure you're getting mineral stuff. And I'm just thinking like calcium particularly, because that's another thing that when people go vegan, they're like, oh my gosh, like like people's teeth are falling out. like, okay, well, they're depleting themselves they're releasing a lot of the acidity, and then the structure and components that made up their teeth are not as strong anymore. So it is important to continue to remineralize. So I don't know if you have anything to add with that in relation to like
high
calcium and
amounts of
teeth and stuff like
greens.
that.
I am a huge proponent of supplementing and cleaning out your liver, because we hold extra supplements in our liver, but we have to clean out our liver for it to be a storehouse that can hold on to these things. Like if you only give yourself a teeny tiny space in your cabinet, you're not going to have room to like stockpile this. So you got to do a big like deep cleaning out your liver, cleaning out your body, cleaning out your storage. Then you can hold the glycogen that you need. Then you can hold the B12 that you need for a rainy day. Then you can hold the, the calcium and all these amazing things that the liver holds. So I always recommend like make sure you're doing that, but also supplementing is great. I'm a fan of people supplementing iodine. I'm a fan of people taking the barley grass juice powder. I do dulse. I have all kinds of different supplements. Herbs I don't consider supplements. I think those are just like organ enhancers. So I'm a big fan of people learning what organs are weak in their bodies and then strengthening those organs. So if you have a weak parathyroid, get on some herbs that'll strengthen that up. And
Connected to with parathyroid, right? And that's everything.
Yeah, so those are things that I find very important. And other supplements that I think of, like I would say just large amounts of greens for your calcium. Magnesium, I mean, there's one that people don't get a lot of, zinc. I recommend people taking a zinc supplement. And
liquid based, or have,
like
a liquid
typically
zinc.
like a liquid zinc. B12, supplement B12. If you're not getting sunlight, supplement D3.
Yeah. You need that to absorb the calcium. You need magnesium. Like they all work together. Magnesium, calcium, phosphorus, like all that works together. If you don't have the luxury of being in Florida and being in the wonderful sun all the time.
You gotta take, if I had supplemented, I might have been in way better moods all the time. If I had just been like, oh, I need vitamin D, because it's cloudy here all the time. I'm literally not getting it. So I recommend definitely supplementing D vitamins if you're in a northern state, or if it's cloudy all the time. And other supplements that I would recommend. Those are probably like across the board. I would say like you're going to do great supplementing with these things. And then each other ones just depends on what people are going through at the time. Different like circumstances, different health stages, whether or not they want to have a baby, what they're healing, where they're at, all of those things.
What's the stress level? Like there's so many variables at play. So it's understanding the different types of stressors, like not just mental, like people around you, but what you're doing, and micro traumas, physical stressors. There's so many different like thoughts. We call them the 3 T's in chiropractic: thoughts, toxins, and traumas, right? But yeah, so I'm glad that you were sharing all that, because those are just some other tidbits. And I want to honor our time, because I know we can go on, so maybe we'll have to do this again some other time, because we've got so much jam-packed information in there. But I really wanted some of our like listeners on my side to really kind of know like what was your journey. I didn't even finalize. I'm assuming like when you went junk food vegan, and then you noticed you started gaining weight, but you started losing the weight when you went more raw food, like more high photonic energy food, right? Not
30 pounds
processed
came
stuff,
off in 3 months.
And it was healthy weight loss too, and sustainable weight loss. And that's the biggest thing, is like we want to create it as a lifestyle. It's not just a diet. It's a way, it's a lifestyle change. It's a way of being, a way of like internalizing and then healing along the way. And the healing it didn't stop in 3 months. You still continue healing. Like healing is an ongoing journey, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Is there any like final things that you want to share with anybody before we close up? We do know that you've got another ebook along the way, so I'm assuming keep an eye out on Instagram.
Yeah, that one should launch in May. So it will be released soon.
Oh, okay. Anything else you'd like to share? Any other things to look
No,
forward to?
I'm just really, I will still continue to be like, I'm deciding my page is predominantly going to be just like recipe focused. Recipes that aren't in my ebooks, recipes that are in my ebooks. That's really what is making me come alive right now, like what you said with the human design. So that is my focus. I'll kind of not veer as much on like different, I don't know, healing tips or things, but just sharing easy recipes with people in the kitchen. So that is the direction that it's going. So that's really exciting for me to kind of feel like I finally have like a move, like a niche, you know, a theme to my page. So that, and then the ebooks, that's where I'm at.
And then assuming, is it only for local people that clearly you can prepare foods for
Typically,
them too
except
then?
that I've frequently hosted like weekend retreats with people that want to take a whole weekend and learn how to reset their life and heal and all of those things. And I have them come down and they stay a weekend with me and they work with me in the kitchen. So I've had several people travel from different parts of Florida. I had someone fly in from New Jersey to take a class with me, someone would fly in from Pennsylvania. So that is also something that I love doing. It's when people come and visit me in person and just spend time with me in the kitchen. But predominantly, yes, I don't ship anything. People can find my ebooks online, and I teach them like even my cheesecakes. I have a whole course on that. People, it's 40% off. People can take like literally like this skill that I have is like so learnable by anybody in the world. It's not like special. um,
But there's something special when someone else is preparing it.
That's
It
true.
really
If
is.
I ever did find a way to get those cheesecakes to ship nationwide, I totally would. It's just that the amount of like having to think of something having to stay frozen while it's shipped across the nation is like, oh my gosh, I can't figure that out yet. But one day.
We just got to figure out how to do it. And man, I just see a future of us
Yeah.
connecting in some like retreats. Yes, I would love to bring you on to be part of the like a healing retreat. And then we have someone like you who's also
Yeah.
like creating these beautiful, delightful foods along the entire way. So I'm thinking I
Yeah,
might want to be reaching out a
absolutely.
little after this to see what kind of come up
Yes.
together too.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you so much for like joining and taking time out of your day to be able to do this. I mean, I know people are, without a doubt, are just like their minds are probably spinning from all the different topics we were hitting and then realizing like how delicious and yummy it is. And for those that aren't following her on Instagram, follow her on Instagram. Like you'll just be like totally floored at the like I'm literally starting to salivate just thinking about some of the pictures that you have on your
Thank you.
page, looking at it. And so just thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for like making it like so reachable. And that's the other thing too. The ebooks, they're not expensive. You can drop just a little bit of money on doing it. My gosh, come on. And then just get your butt in the kitchen, get the ingredients and start doing this and making it not just palatable, but making it nourishing and a part of your lifestyle and see how it can be so fun at
Yes,
the same time.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so enjoyable. I know we have so many similarities with chiropractic background and Dr. Morse and Raw. It's like a lot of connections. So I'm so glad that we finally got to do this.
Me too. And maybe
Yeah,
I'll come visit and then maybe we can meet up in person
absolutely.
and do a
Next
little something
time
together
I can do that.
soon.
Next time you're in the
Oh, I love
area.
it. I will. I will. Well, you have a beautiful rest of your day. Everybody else have a wonderful rest
Yeah.
of your day, morning, evening, whatever it might be. And then
Yeah.
until
Thanks
next time, we'll
everyone for
catch up.
joining.
So
This
thank
was
you.
nice to have you on. Bye.
Bye now. And And as everyone knows, we'll be using this. We'll also be able to watch us on the replay, and then we'll also have this available on the podcast as well. So that way you can tune in, not just watching it, but then also listening in on your favorite listening means as well. So everyone have a beautiful rest of your day.